You are listening to Dialogues for Our Futures, a podcast from Hanaholmen, the Cultural Center for Sweden and Finland.
What comes to mind when you hear social investment? Is it about helping those in need or exploiting those who are struggling? While traditional sustainable investing focuses on things like clean water and renewable energy, social investing remains less known and developed. But can investing truly support social services or welfare? That's what social impact investing aims to do.
We work with entrepreneurs and teams. It's about people. People is the hardest thing to figure out, So my biggest learning is that since I did my first angel investing in 2004, 3, something like that, and when you meet entrepreneurs and they have this strong mission, you're so easily wooed. They're charismatic and you go with them. And then what I've learned over the past years, I find it pretty amazing how much people can argue with their social mission, how many conflicts I've seen in founder teams. And that's incredibly hard. Even when you think you have this wonderful mission, it's going so well, all of a sudden you have disrupted and someone is leaving and there's a conflict and, what do you do?
This is Ruth Brännvall speaking about the challenges in her work. And the challenges are many. In the Nordic countries, social impact investing is still small and underdeveloped, lacking strategy, funding, and clear metrics. To explore this, Hanaholmen gathered experts for a full day of discussions, culminating in a panel led by Kaius Niemi from Milton.
I'm very happy to introduce all the panelists, and from my left hand side, the CVs are so long that it takes about half an hour now me to introduce you guys.
Don't bother.
But Mikko, I would say that you are a seasoned leader in strategy and innovation and background spanning business and academia and public policy. You say that you have a fourth
career in my life.
Yeah, fourth career.
I'm now living my fourth career in life. First was business, second was societal influencer, third was academia, and now it's culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so let's start with you, Mikko. What's your personal relation to impact investing?
No less than bringing it to Finland. Now, I was the president of Sitra for 12 years, and I think it was in 2014 that we kind of brought SIPs and impact investment in Finland. We saw that we need new tools to have an impact, and Sitra was of course always working for impact. It was a foundation-based thing, 1.2 billion euros kind of endowment, but we were kind of operating foundation in the sense that we were also doing all projects, measuring them with this IOOI framework. You all know. I mean that input, output, outcome, impact, and trying to kind of learn measuring it, and then bringing the kind of the SIPs or social impact bonds to Finland. It was an attempt then to kind of make it concrete. I mean, really start to measure impact. And it was hard, as we have learned today. I mean, and I'm really, really happy to now hear that the S-Banks kind of Koto SIPs and the work SIPs are now, because they were started by Sitra, and then they have been now for 10 years, they've been practicing, and now it starts to really be kind of bearing the fruits. So really, really congratulations for S-Banks, and you guys have fantastic results, and very, very pleased to hear that.
Very nice. And then we have Ruth Brännvall. You have come from Sweden and
Åland.
And Åland, of course. You have a just fantastic background. So interesting. You have been impact investing, and you're the founder of an organization working in the intersection of finance and social innovation. You have led entrepreneurship programs and investment funds supporting ventures in over 70 countries, something like that, maybe. Yeah. And you have worked closely with, for instance, Richard Branson and in Africa and so forth. So you're really into
That's how old I am. He is far and retired.
It's
He's
not
going
about
on
the
80.
age, isn't it? But what I would say that you have also academia background, PhD in economics in the Royal Institute of Technology and so forth. But tell me, how does it feel now when like a larger amount of people are actually starting to talk about this issue? compared to the era when you started?
Tiny, I reflected on the fact that the first time I was here to do an impact conference was with Citra 2015. I think we did it with Arctic Business 15. They were just set up, the innovation and tech. And luckily for me, it was very poor and bad with names. Everyone was named Jussi. It was Jussi from Citra and it was Jussi Nikkanen. And, we started talking about it. And then the government was very active.
Yes.
Kind of pulled out. It was a temporary period.
Yeah.
Same thing in Sweden. And I was in that between this, 2015, I was back in England and set up another impact fund there. And when I came back, actually the government in Sweden had stopped it. Finland wasn't driving it. So I felt it went from something that had this huge potential and interest in it, and then it went down.
Exactly.
And a couple of years ago, during the pandemic, we started realizing also that the welfare system is cracking. And as an impact investor, it's a network, we had started to shift from when we set up, ages ago, to move it on climate and energy and so forth. And it's what someone said before, it's easier. I think it was Jenno in her speech talking about energy and transition is slightly easier because it's easier to measure. Yeah. And when we think about social, it gets complex and therefore we shy away from it. So I think, am I excited? No, I'm super frustrated. I'm one here jumping. I come from a tech background and it's so slow. It's so slow. It's so slow to change the financial system. And I do get annoyed because it's happening in other countries in Europe. And here we yet are in finance. It's got to be structured like this. And including the European Investment Bank that looks at what are the boxes, and we're not innovating. We have too much respect for money and we have too much respect for capital, not questioning where that money is going and how we can use it. Mm-hmm. So if you see me excited, it's not only because I had drunk too much coffee today, but I'm jumping up and down because now we are meeting again. It's 10 years later. Some things have moved forward, but let's talk more
about it. Yes.
It's interesting. Yes, absolutely. So Vesa Sarmia, partnership director at the Deaconess Foundation, with over 20 years of experience in developing socially impactful services and concepts across the public sector, NGOs, and as an entrepreneur also. So, what's your take on the impact investment currently?
I think we have to be ambitious. We need to change the way we organize our services in Finland. And representing the Deaconess Foundation, we are also a traditional provider of social services all over Finland. But at the same time, we want to change the markets, change the ways of how we purchase services in the public sector. And that's what I want to be doing.
Very good. I was just thinking about the question about the Nordic countries where there's like a very strong state and not so much of tendency for philanthropy as we have in many other places, such as in the States or maybe in the UK even. What do you think, Ruth? Does that impact the way things are being looked at, in Sweden, Finland, maybe Norway? Denmark?
Yes, I think most definitely it does. I think with Denmark being the only exception, they do have very strong philanthropic organizations, often connected to the corporate ventures. So there is a tradition of CSR, etc., etc. But yes, naturally, and of course there should be a distinction between, the British model. Why impact flourish? Of course, is because you don't have a great welfare system. So we should be happy about it, but also to see where can the private, be additional, because innovation can partly come from the state, but it's not normally state. And we thrive on innovation, we thrive on technical expertise and so forth. So why shouldn't we be able to crack these kind of social issues as well in the combination of, the state actually then hedging some of those risks. But when you see both from the European level, where the growth funding comes from and comes into, and they recognize the social issues are important, but just, if we talk about the taxonomy, why don't we have a social taxonomy? We have for green, and having having eavesdropped into that conversation, the whole social taxonomy was driven by, supply chain issues. Let's look at, human rights, etc. And I said, where's the equivalent of an Article 9 fund in the social taxonomy? It can't exist. So we said, we are one. Let us show you what we are then, if we mean we can put, impact forward and invest in something that is forward-looking. So you see that drive in the green, that's fine. But with social yet, and I think it's partly about that we don't want to give up perhaps the idea about the welfare state. We like that model; it works for the better part of the population. But we have these cracks, we have these pockets of poverty everywhere. And it's getting more and more in the open. So it's a mix.
The government is definitely running out of money, at least in Finland and probably also in Sweden. And since we've been kind of educated to the kind of Nordic model where you are being taken care of from cradle to grave, and in a way, many of us have, and it includes companies and universities. Social sector has kind of outsourced responsibility of everything to the state, and the private sector is not really getting involved. It's very ideological also, at least in Finland. If you look at our kind of healthcare system at the moment, I mean, I'm an advisory board member of one of the kind of hospital district at the moment, and it's really, really sad to see that although the hospitality district have kind of a responsibility to organize healthcare and well-being for 500,000 people, their actual market share is less than 50%. The rest is by the private sector and by insurance, and yet so it's very kind of contradictory. You have the responsibility, but you are not allowed to collaborate with the private sector. So it's very deeply rooted this problem that the division of labor, that this is. Private sector is for profit making, you guys are for welfare, and we have to get rid of that. I mean, it's absolutely
and procurement
true.
Is one of the keys, right? Because in the EU law, it is so that public procurement is also an outcomes based. You can do that, and what's best for tax money, and that's something they have used really well in England when it comes to the procurement, and the municipalities are collaborating to see how can we get both the cheapest deal, but first of all, you get what you want for your money.
But the public sector fails. Our foundation works with the people who are in most vulnerable position in the society, and we clearly can see that the public sector fails when an individual has more than one problem at a time, and it's all over the service system, and we need to change not just the services by themselves. We have to change the system, and that's I think it's quite a challenge for us because we believe in this system so strongly. But I think these are good examples, social impact bonds and others, to also develop the system at the same time. But it's not enough because, one more thing, because the public sector experiences now that they are not engaged enough. They are just paying for the results. They want to be more steering the process.
Yeah, I was just putting my foundation hat on top of my head now because I think there is a lot more that the foundations, the grants foundations could do in Finland. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but grants foundations are giving out like over 500 million euros annually, and now I joined the kind of Kordelin Foundation like a year and a half ago with my kind of Sitra experience and academic experience, and I was horrified when I saw what's happening, what's really how the grants foundation sector is functioning, Kordelin included. Nobody had any strategy. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much. No strategy. I mean, what are we? What's our identity? What are we funding? Secondly, spreading money out like half a year or 12 months kind of grants, 10,000, 20,000 here and there, and no follow-up of the impact at all. And that's the landscape of foundations. They can do so much more. I'm just taking an example what we have done in Kordelin now, and I have a little proposal how to proceed. but we have now created a funding pipeline that extends 5 years now. We changed our 1 year individual grants to groups up to 2 years. Then if they are successful, they can seek for what we call grand cultural program money for 2 years. And on top of that, they can have bridge funding for a year. So we have a 5-year kind of plan for bigger, larger, impactful projects, which of course challenges us because we have to be also able to coach and sparring them. But on top of that's not enough. And that's why I think what we need also, and now we come back to what we've been discussing today, we need something in between impact investment and philanthropy. I mean, we have hard kind of profit-seeking investments. Then we have what we have learned today. We have impact investment, and then we have philanthropy. And the grant foundations are typically philanthropy. But why don't we have something which is in between is kind of funding or financing of more self-sufficient kind of cultural projects, so that the government and the other sectors would save money if they could. They are not necessarily profit-seeking, but they would be still more self-standing. We need something like that because we know that culture is last. I mean, if you think of the government money, it's defense, it's healthcare, it's education, and last culture, even though everybody says that it's important. So new funding instruments needed. If I can, one more thing say.
Can I give a response to that?
Yes, you can. But I'm taking an example because this is. I was day before yesterday. I was participating in a kind of council meeting of a well-established Finnish kind of a music association, which is struggling with money like everybody now, seeking money, having gone to tens of different kind of foundations to get 10,000 or something to survive for the next year, and they realized in that meeting, in the council meeting, that we have come to an end of this road. I mean, there's no way we will go bankrupt if we continue this way. We need a strategy. We need a longer term kind of planning. Now the problem is that they don't have the competencies. Now why don't we need? I would say that we need some kind of new vehicles that would be supporting, for instance, cultural organizations in developing competencies, business model competencies and business competencies to become more self-sufficient. Yeah. If we don't get this, the cultural sector will die.
And that's very serious. Isn't it so? This is not an educated guess or any educated sort of like comment, but I find it hard to understand why culture is so hard to measure, because people are repeating this and obviously it's not easy. What do you think, Ruth?
I mean, my point here and what I want to comment on is that I'm not convinced we need additional models, because two models can go align and hook arms. And I'll give one example. It's a school we just recently funded with some, culture profile, and we need our money back. So we have a repayment model, an agreement with them. At the same time, there was a foundation who grant that. Mm-hmm. The combination of this, what we are aiming to do together, that's a combination. And do this organization, many of them, yes, they need more acumen, business skills, etc., etc. But there are support organizations, and there are tons online these days on education and on things that you can also learn, and courses and so on. Because the question is, if we keep supporting and expect these organizations to thrive, if we support them, if we're constantly carrying, then some organization, should they thrive, they need to seek and attract that kind of talent. And I do think a lot of that support is available. but we need to think about how do we combine them so that we don't always think this is the type of repayment, that's the grant, because the philanthropies, the ones that fund us, they do fund culture, they fund art.
Yes.
And so the actual donors or the investors, they see some of this combination. I think that's what's new in our fund, at least. We have the philanthropists, we have foundations investing in us, and we have some that are more commercially orientated.
But are you of the opinion that we don't need anything between kind of impact investment, which is still profit-seeking? It is profit-seeking thing.
It's in between. We're blended.
Okay, but at least what we've heard here, I mean, everybody in impact investment is promising a return, and now it may be not as high as that, but then we have a lot of gray areas between impact investment with returns and philanthropy.
That's sector uses micro.
Exactly. You know, this is about micro. So you say, is it profit-seeking? We have a repayment model. Otherwise, we can't exist. My salary doesn't get paid if the money is really paid with some interest, right? Yeah. And that's where we are.
Yeah, the goal
it's repayment at a cost, and we have a level of that. So in our model, the portfolio is that we mix it. We invest in some that are really high growth ventures in access to health. We invest in healthcare, by the way. And then we have some cases where we can do profit, not for profit funding. And for those, it's just at cost. But the whole portfolio that we manage can return something for investors. So we mix it.
Thank you, Ruth, because I very much like your idea of this blended kind of a
thing.
Blended
into our portfolio.
Because it you can make it, I mean, because you do have even in cultural field, you have opportunities for business and return.
Yes.
And you definitely not all of them.
But they're harder to find.
But they're hard to find, but many of them don't. But if you have a sufficient kind of fund and you have a blended fund, then you can probably kind of survive. I mean, giving returns, as you said. So it's that's possible.
Very much like this. There's no need for a moderator here.
But you asked what we're not answering the question.
You had a point. I mean, we were like steering to the culture. But maybe you have something about the welfare state and the delimitation of it, maybe.
Yeah, a bit of the same. If we want to solve some complex problems, for example, youth exclusion in one area, for example, in Helsinki, we need an ecosystem which has different kinds of interventions that, most of them are based beforehand, before the exclusion risks, and to the families and to the schools and so on. And all of them aren't capable of functioning like impact investing through S-Bank, for example, because you have to have measurable results and impact like education rate or employment or so on. And that's why I agree that we need something to the middle, but I'm not sure what kind of a process it would be in a social innovation scale. But we probably need, at the same time, we need this impact investing, we need public funding, we need foundation funding for the different kinds of approaches to build the ecosystem. So,
how much would you actually place like bets on the impact investment? There was this very interesting slide that we saw when Jenny was showing that there is a huge gap between societal gap and then the impact investment type of methodology could actually then help to sustain some pain, but not everything. How much you would put like emphasis on this and bets on this one?
You mean on impact investment or what?
Yes, as a vehicle. You know, when looking at the whole picture, the big picture.
As much as I like it, and I feel that there's a need for it, but it's not solving everything. And the problem is that the measurability is there, and like as was discussed today, and we really experienced in Sitra. I mean, it's difficult to get investors' money if you are not measuring it. And then again, in the area of culture and arts, I mean, I hate this saying that what gets measured gets done. because you will never ever get anything new done if it's measurable. Right? I mean, in arts, in anything innovation, you don't know. You have to move forward. If you know in advance everything, you are just kind of implementing something more efficiently, and you can create a tool for that. So I'm saying that it's impact investment is an important vehicle for improving the efficiency of public-private collaboration in society, but it's not solving everything.
I think impact investing should be the top of the iceberg, because we're trying to show new models. And I think when you look at, the clean tech and energy, it has moved into mainstream more or less.
Right.
And then the measurable, it's there. It's the aim to measure something. And then the social impact investing space needs a number of many more iterations, and it needs a number of new forms. We need a variety. We need to test things. We need to experiment, and the combination of green and social and so forth. But I do think, my mission in life is not to make this big pie of things. It's to move it into this and to prove that it works and to prove that we have models, because the big capital is in the pension funds.
Yeah.
All societies have these, the biggest money, the trillions are in pension funds. Yeah. So if a pension fund finally can invest in something, then it's gone mainstream.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't perhaps be impact investing anymore.
Or Norwegian oil funds. My experience is that we have had lots of discussions with the investors, potential investors in different kind of settings. And I think in Finland, that is not a problem. We have investors who are willing to invest big amounts, but the public sector isn't ready. So the projects won't start. So we have experienced that the public sector, for example, the welfare areas in Finland, they need lots of time, lots of effort to prepare, to co-create the model, but they don't have money to buy it from anywhere. So nowadays we have offered them the support by our own resources. The municipalities are they are different. Like Samir said, they are planning to buy almost every employment service impact result based. But the welfare areas are in trouble. They don't have money. They need to do those tasks that the law says, and they can't change it. So it's stuck. And the biggest financial issues are there in the health and social sector. This is what we should be talking about, and to solve it and help them. So I think the money isn't the real issue.
Yeah, I think it's important to, one summary of today's afternoon discussion is really that, the green is the easiest piece of this, the green part. Then
that's right.
Then comes the social, which is much more complicated and context specific and longer term. But then comes culture. At the end of the bottle, which is even more difficult. It's still contributing to society in an enormously important way, and which is really, really hard to measure. So I really urge us to think of ways, because otherwise, we are running out of money. For the cultural sector. So it's and what I said earlier already. I think it's really important to understand that in the sector of culture, it's particularly, I think, typical that they hate management. They hate everything which is relating to money making or profit making or anything. So they don't have the competencies. Just an example that from a day before yesterday, or from this kind of council meeting where I was, they said that if only we could now get somebody to fund. If we had a good strategy and plan making us profitable in 5 years' time, if we could get somebody to fund us, two kind of professional people to create the strategy and business model for us and help us to do it, then we would definitely give you some kind of it would pay back. Not sure whether that's true or not, but anyway, their problem was that they need new competencies. They need somebody who help. You said that there are organizations that could do it, fine, and if you can kind of bring them into the same kind of model like you have already in the impact investment. You have professionals here and there and bringing them together to make it happen. Fine, but the problem is we should not be funding productions like we do today. We should be funding business development. That's completely, and we don't have anybody today funding business development in the culture field.
Irina was talking about that the failure is part of the learning process. So can you share us a personal learning process along the way? You know, what would you have been into, and maybe like maybe some failures would be interesting to hear. Maybe
You're looking at me.
well, Vesa can start.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think my biggest failure is that this development has been that slow. Because we started to gather relevant data about 10 years ago, and now we're in the position that we can show some respectable results. It's quite too slow, and to create an ecosystem, if every participant has to develop their metrics 10 years. This is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, there will be AI helping you out. but Vesa, talking about like what would you do differently now? So what would be, you know, what's the learning curve here?
I think we have learned a lot. We have learned how to create that kind of metrics that are suitable for this kind of investment. I think we know that now. We know that how to build these kind of ecosystems, not just organize services to, it's been too small. We haven't had ambition to start solving bigger issues with a bigger amount of investing, bigger amount of, the ambition needs to be stronger.
But Ruth, your sort of like view is you know, catering 70 different countries, so to say, or
Not
even
anymore,
more.
thank God.
Well, but I mean, you have
now it's the Nordics.
Yeah,
Nordics
but at the time, I mean, would you do something differently now?
Yeah, but it's a much more simple personal story. I think. I mean, we work with entrepreneurs and teams. It's about people, and people is the hardest thing to figure out. You know. So my biggest learning is that since I did my first angel investing in 2004, 3, something like that, and you know, when you meet entrepreneurs and they have this strong mission, you're so easily wooed. They're charismatic, and you go with them. And then what I've learned over the past years, I find it pretty amazing how much people can argue with their social mission, how many conflicts I've seen in founder teams. And I tell you, that's where we spend a lot of time on now. Before we go into an investment, making sure you have founder agreements, you have founder alignments. And usually our work now starts with, actually, you have, one of the co-founders is passive. Well, then we have to look at, you know, what's the right and fair, you know, ownership and so on. So we deal with a lot more on teams and people. And can we structure this and to set the foundation? And you know that in any, you know, you can relate to all of this, all of you, wherever you are in work. To have something to grow and scale and to be successful is about the people and the team and the culture that you're going to foster. And that's incredibly hard. Even when you think you have this wonderful mission, it's going so well, all of a sudden you have disrupted and someone is leaving and there's a conflict and, you know, what do? And I think gradually we can start to prevent some of those failure from happening, helping the teams to say, you know, you're all 3 married now, but 2 years down the line, something might happen. Let's look at this agreement, or let's discuss this. So people, it's the biggest learning. I'd say it's never a failure, but I have lost some money on that. Yes, indeed.
Okay. And how about Mikko?
No, I mean, my failures, you mean?
Yes, your failures.
No, I would agree that, I mean, many failures, but I mean, I'm also disappointed on how slowly the kind of the impact investment in Finland has been progressing. I mean, we had big hopes at Sitra time that it's going to be in 5 years' time, it's going to be kind of main kind of large scale business and Main Street kind of thing, and didn't. I mean, it really kind of faded for a while, and now hopefully it's kind of now we have more experience, and it's taken too long time, but that's probably in this context my failure. Yeah.
So what would you do differently before we are opening the floor to
I would agree with Ruth that it really is about people. I mean, it's like in all investment, and as I said, I mean, in this field of culture, I mean, we also should pay much more attention to the kind of the competencies, the skills of the people, and be much more strict on when they do applications on something that, I mean, do they really have what it needs to do this happen, and what kind of help would they need to do it? So how do we kind of support them, etc. So this whole people business is key to it. I mean, otherwise it's not going to fly. That's absolutely. That's why I think we need some new also funding mechanisms, or something that helps us to kind of coach and help these people to really flourish and succeed with their kind of whatever they are attempting to do.
Because we need to sort of like finalize this, and hopefully with a higher note. So just the last round here. So what are you excited about, and maybe commenting on the issue in a broader sense. So Mikko, if you can.
I think the old saying that the crisis is a mother of innovation here. I mean, I think we are approaching a situation in at least Finnish society, most likely in the rest of the world as well, that I mean we just need some new kind of innovative kind of financing tools, and as well as new operating models in general. I mean, we just cannot afford anymore to operate with public and private sector separately. I mean, they have to come together. I mean, there's no other way. I mean, that we can overcome the problems that we are currently saying. I mean, we are so siloed, so kind of industrial age, kind of prisoners of industrial age kind of operating models, that everybody works in their own silos, and you're jealously kind of guarding your turf, and people are not coming together. Now, in the face of crisis like now, we really we have to come together.
Vesa, what makes you? Thank you. What makes you excited?
I'm very excited about this economical crisis.
It's a very Finnish way of portraying it.
When it comes to this kind of thinking that we are talking about, it is going to make the change.
Yes,
and we can see it already in the municipalities. So I thank you for the crisis.
Ruth?
I mean, it's always the entrepreneurs that make a fund manager excited. But I thought of one example, which I wanted to raise earlier, and that was based on the last comment that, and this may be a good time, where both the academia, the public sector, and the private, the innovators come together. And that's the need for it, as we are, as an example, within health. We don't understand patient journeys at all. So as an example, we have invested in a company that does a certain diagnostics. Now, of course, we want to know, but what's the health status of that person 2 years later? But the next department doesn't know. Because here was surgery, and surgery didn't speak to diagnostics. And then the payer doesn't know the outcome of that.
Exactly.
And there is this is a European problem, it's a global problem. So here we have an EU project initiating funding research and to see how can we track data. And that's an example of how, and we must work together to understand, a patient and a person's journey through different types of system. Is it effective care? Is it social care? Is it education system? How do we follow people and, allow people to own their data? I'm massively, passionate about that. As a person, and you should own your data and be able to bring it with you.
Exactly.
And it's slowly coming, and we must have that. But I think on the horizon that we are more empowered, and that would benefit both the funders, the payers, and everyone. If we own our data, we understand what works, and then we can provide effective and correct support to each and everyone.
Exactly. We didn't have time now to discuss about the data, but I think that can be a big opportunity for us, and because we can now gather data from anywhere, everywhere, and measuring things will become much more easier. I mean, with the data, so that's an opportunity.
There's a lot of talk about cooperation here, about psychodynamics, psychology, and working together. And I think that has been extremely valuable. Let's give a big hand to our magnificent panelists. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Dialogues for Our Futures, conversations where Swedish and Finnish voices come together to discuss shared questions and challenges. This is a podcast from Hanaholmen, the Cultural Center for Sweden and Finland, marking its 50th anniversary. Today's episode features Ruth Brännvall, CEO of Impact Invest, Mikko Kosonen, Chair of the Board at Alfred Kordelin Foundation, Vesa Sarmia, Director of Partnership at Deaconess Foundation. Want to learn more? Visit hanaholmen.fi to explore our work. The dialogue series is produced in collaboration with the production company Munk Studios.